Okay.
Are we rolling?
You are rolling.
Okay. My name is Jim Peva. I'm 87 years old, and this is my 55th year coming to Bean Blossom for bluegrass music. Next year will be the 50th annual June festival, and so far I've been to all of them. I feel it very fortunate that I had the opportunity to meet one of the greatest musicians that America has ever produced, Bill Monroe. He was not only a great singer and instrumentalist, but he was a songwriter and a band leader too. He's in the Country Music Hall of Fame. He's in several Bluegrass Halls of Fame. And in 1951, he purchased the Brown County Jamboree, which at that time was an ongoing musical event here at Bean Blossom. The Jamboree was started in the very late 30s or early 40s, and was in it was held in first on the roadside. It was a roadside show. Then it moved to the Francis Run property, where they held it in a tent for a couple of years, and then the Jamboree barn was built and opened in about 1943. And they had Saturday night square dances and Sunday shows. So when Monroe purchased the property, he continued that venue with his brother Birch in charge of the shows. At the time, I was a member of the Indiana State Police in 1961. We had to hire an entertainer for a pistol match banquet, an annual banquet we had in Terre Haute. I came down to see if Bill could play for that event, and found him in a jam session in the back room in the Jamboree. Knocked on the door and asked if I could speak to him, and he came out still plunking on his mandolin. I told him about the event, and I said it's going to be on September the 13th. He said, that's my birthday. And I figured, well, you won't be available. But he said, yeah, we can come. I'm not booked on that day. Still plunking on his mandolin. And so I said, well, I tell you what, I'll mail you a contract in the mail and with all the instructions how to get there. So he said, okay, went back to his jam session. I came the night of the banquet, no Bill Monroe, didn't show up. I hadn't heard from him. I called his brother Birch and I said, I haven't heard from Bill. He's supposed to send me a contract. And Birch says, well, he said, you won't need a contract. If you shook on it, he don't think any paper's necessary. So sure enough, he showed up half an hour late and continued, and he went on and played the show. So that was my introduction to Bill Monroe. After that, my family, Eileen and my 3 girls, came down nearly every Sunday to the Jamboree barn when Bill Monroe was here. I think we only missed one show from in the Jamboree barn while it was still in operation. Then later on in 1967, Bill decided to have what he called a 2-day bluegrass celebration, and that was in actuality the first bluegrass festival here at Bean Blossom. It was held in the barn, and several of the major headliners in bluegrass participated. The next year, in 1968, they moved the venue outdoors and built a stage in the same location that this stage is in now. And they started the outdoor festivals. They continued both the Jamboree Sunday shows and the June festival for several years until Birch Monroe, Bill's older brother, passed away in 1982. And then they discontinued the Sunday shows in the barn, but continued the festivals. In 1986, the Jamboree barn was torn down and the present museum building was put in its place. But the festivals have continued until this day, and Bill Monroe produced them, he and his brother Birch, and they were very successful in the early 70s. They were very rare. There was only, maybe 15 or 20 bluegrass festival in the entire country. And people would come here from all over the country because it was a happening, and it was a rare event. You couldn't walk, back in those days, you couldn't walk 60 feet without passing a jam session. I can remember going home to a quiet home and saying to my wife, "Can you hear that bass fiddle in your head?" And she could. We were absorbed in music down here. As the years went by, the festivals became more numerous. Today there are perhaps 1,000 or so festivals, bluegrass festivals, in the country. But Bean Blossom June Festival is the oldest continuously running festival any place in the world. The second oldest is, I think, Ralph Stanley's over in Virginia, and strangely enough, the third oldest is probably a Japanese festival that was started in the 70s. The Japanese were exposed to American country and bluegrass music during the Armed Forces Radio Network during the occupation of Japan. They took the bluegrass and formed bluegrass bands and started festivals very early. They still come to Bean Blossom. A couple of years ago we passed a petition around here in Bean Blossom to have people sign for a Bill Monroe postage stamp, which is, I understand, coming out this year in 2015. When we took up the petition, we were surprised to find at that June festival there were 42 states represented here at Bean Blossom and 7 foreign countries. So this has become an international event. I would venture to say that, guess that 90% of the people who live in Indiana don't know where Bean Blossom is. But all of the bluegrass fans in the world know where it is. It's become that kind of an event. And the music, I think, has become a real heritage of Indiana and should be preserved, in my estimation, and should be celebrated in a big way next year at the 50th anniversary.